Welcome to today's webinar hosted by eLotus and sponsored by Evergreen Herbs. We are your trusted source for quality CEU content with over 20 years of experience in providing educational courses. My name is Donna Chow, your host and your moderator for today's webinar. Our goal is to help you enhance your knowledge and expand your skill set. Today's class is Advanced Application of Balance Method to Pulse Diagnosis, Acupuncture, and Herbs, and will be presented by Mike Triling. This webinar is part of our series of new herbal CEU webinars for the year. Chinese herbal medicine often doesn't receive the attention it deserves in TCM healthcare. Therefore, we hope that webinars like this will help both experienced herbal professionals hone their skills and beginners embark on their professional journey. Today's webinar brings three distinct groups. We have our first group, the Watch It Free group. Watch It Free participants get to access today's webinar for free, although you do not receive CEUs. But if you'd like to upgrade to our second group, our paid group, you can earn CEUs in addition to attending today's webinar. And finally, our third group is our Gold Pass members who enjoy full access to live webinars, distant learning courses, and a library of over 3,000 hours of clinically relevant content. All participants, regardless of which group you are in, you get access to the recording for a month. While Gold Pass members, you retain access for as long as you are a member, making this valuable resource for continuous education and patient care. Gold Pass membership is valid for 1 full year and includes a gift voucher from Evergreen Herbs. And for today's special offer, we are providing the Gold Pass at $9.99, along with a $9.99 gift voucher for Evergreen's premium collection line formulas. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the eLotus Gold Pass, it's your ticket to the ultimate learning experience with access to over 200 eLotus speakers and their expertise from 30 years of seminar and webinars. Explore Master Dong's acupuncture, Dr. Tan's balance method, Japanese acupuncture, abdominal acupuncture, and much more. Over 3,000 hours of webinar recordings are available for you to enhance your patient care. Normally priced at $1,500, today we have a special offer for you. You can get the eLotus Gold Pass at just $9.99, and our sponsor, Evergreen Herbs, will give you a $9.99 store voucher to try their most effective line of herbal products. So yeah, you heard that right, guys. This means you get unlimited CEUs, over 3,000 hours of video recording, and almost $1,000 worth of Evergreen Herbs for free. So if you're new to using herbs, this is the perfect opportunity to learn It's the perfect opportunity to learn, and you can try it for your personal use and family if you are a bit hesitant, and then you can move on to provide it for your patient. But either way, the herbs are free, so why not? And if you're already using herbs, well, it's a no-brainer. If you're currently a Gold Pass member or use Evergreen Herbs, please share in the chat right now how you've benefited from the Gold Pass and how you feel about the efficacy of Evergreen Herbs for your patient. So back to today's class. Today's webinar will run from 10 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to have one break. We'll let you know when that is. And before we begin, let me highlight some important Zoom features. First, we have our chat room, and I can see that some of you have already typed into the chat room, getting used to it, but I do see some people, their chat preference is set to host and panelists. So what I want you guys to do, help me out, set your chat preference to everyone so that everyone can see what you're writing and be part of the conversation. Now, after the webinar is over, for those who qualify for the quiz, so our paid and Gold Pass members, you guys will get an email when the quiz is ready, and that way you can take your CEU quiz and get credit for it. For our questions today, please limit your questions. For our questions to our speaker, please limit it to relevant topics so that we can ensure an organized and efficient session. And lastly, for those eligible, the CEU quiz will be available no later than the next day in the evening time. So just give us at least 24 hours. And I will email you guys once again when that's ready. All right, so we are delighted to welcome Dr. Mark Triling as our speaker today. He is a seasoned practitioner in acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine licensed by the Texas Medical Board since 2001. With a diverse background in electromechanical engineering and design engineering, Mark's academic journey has led him from Texas Tech University to postgrad studies at the Dallas College of Oriental Medicine. He's also the author of the book The Pulse Matrix and gained significant experience in the balance method during his time as a student intern at DCOM. Beyond his professional life, Mark's passion includes athletics with a 25-year history in short distance running and extensive cycling. He and his wife, Michelle, who is an Ayurvedic health practitioner, yoga therapist, and integrated positional therapist, practice together, offering a holistic approach to well-being. Without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Mark. Mark, go ahead and share your screen now and your presentation and take over from here.
Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and hopefully share some information with everybody. I have been, as you mentioned, within the field of balance method for a long time. I was in school for acupuncture in the 1990s, and I think the first seminar Dr. Tan ever did in Texas was in 1997. And at that time, the attendance in that seminar was pretty small. There was probably about 7 or 8 people there. Most of them were acupuncturists from other states.
Do you want to do your full screen on your PowerPoint?
A lot of the time, the acupuncturists were very new, obviously, to balance method. I was still a student and was kind of interested to just see more about what was going on with balance method. I'd never heard of Dr. Tan. And I was only in my second year at the Dallas College of Oriental Medicine. After that seminar, I went on to into the clinic at the school and got really busy at the school. The clinic, obviously, like most acupuncture schools, treated a lot of patients off the street. So as a result, I had the opportunity to practice balance method from the very get-go, even before I got out of school. So the nice thing about balance method, it really afforded me an opportunity to learn something with students as well as with other patients before I even got out into practice on my own. One of the things that I was attracted to with Dr. Tan was the opportunity to see that he had a background that was very similar to mine, rooted in the hard sciences and engineering. The thing about, I think, acupuncture school that sometimes misses the mark is that we don't study some of the hard sciences that the ancient doctors of Chinese medicine actually realized. So I think introducing the hard sciences of engineering, thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, just physics is really relevant to our medicine. I get questions all the time from patients that, they want to know a little bit more about how acupuncture works. How does the herbs work? They're used to Western medicine. So they are struggling to try to integrate something new into their routine. So one of the things I always try to do is emphasize some sort of an educational process with students as well as patients and even colleagues, so that we can, as a group, try to be better stewards of our medicine for our patients. We have a tremendous opportunity to be helpful to the struggling that occurs with a lot of our patients. They are hurting and they need a lot of help, because one of the things that I see a lot of times is that patients are starting to get kind of fed up with just being told that either they need to have surgery or they need to have more medicines. So one of the things I always try to do is try to simplify things. We have an opportunity to make things really beneficial and simple for patients, but it takes some understanding of our medicine. So we need to do a better job. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share the presentation, but I'll also go back and forth from the presentation to my iPad, because what I want to be able to do is be able to write some things down. So let me get here. I can't see everybody, but I don't know what everybody's experience is with balance methods. So I'm going to do kind of a review of the balance method very quickly. You need more of a thorough introduction to the balance method. I'm sure Elotus has some of Dr. Tan's videos that allows a little bit more comprehensive introduction to the balance method. When I got out of school, I followed Dr. Tan around for many years and took every class he ever offered. So, and several times. And then you know, I got to the point where I got so busy I wasn't able really to travel much anymore. But I learned a lot from Dr. Tan, and I feel like there are some good people now that are carrying on his tradition. So there's really good information out there, and there's a lot of people that have been practicing the balance method for some time. So let me get to, let's see here. All right, what I want to do is share this screen. Okay. So we're going to review the 7 systems. And this is something that I was actually a surprise to find out, is that most people are aware of the 5 basic systems Dr. Tan taught. And then, of course, the 6th system is just the distal point on the channel. But very few people had ever learned the 7th system, and we'll go into that later on in this presentation. What we want to do is learn how to quantify each of the 8 gua in the bagua, so that we can get an understanding of the energetic nature inside the pulse. We'll define the levels of the pulse. We'll look at the point groups as they are assigned to each of the gua. And then we'll also look at the pathological influences.
Not sharing.
We'll do some case studies, and hopefully we'll have time to answer questions or maybe expand on the talk as we go through. This all starts with the Fushi Gua. This is the arrangement that Dr. Tan uses for developing the balance method.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me? Hello, Mark? Mark?
Yes.
Oh, your screen not sharing.
Oh, my screen's not sharing?
Yeah, I think just turn off.
Okay, hold on.
Does look good. Can you make that in a full screen too, Mark?
Is it there now?
Yeah, we see your screen, but are you able to make it full screen?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me share again. There. Did that get it?
Not yet. Nothing coming up. Okay, now coming up.
There?
Yeah, still showing the edited mode. So what you would do is click on the slideshow on the top of the menu, slideshow. Click on the slideshow.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah,
on the PowerPoint.
You can make it full.
Yeah. And so current slide?
Yeah, so you could do the current slide. I think you have to do it from the app. Oh, now coming up. Okay, now coming up. Perfect.
Is that good?
Yep.
Does that look all right?
Sounds good. Looking good.
Okay. So again, the Fushi Gua is where a balance method begins. And everybody's familiar with this. And by the way, see the Tai Chi symbol there in the middle? This is the actual correct depiction of the Tai Chi symbol. And we'll go into that a little bit later. I've seen it all kinds of ways, right? And you have too, most likely. But Dr. Tan said that this is the correct way to depict the Tai Chi symbol in the middle. It's pretty much self-explanatory. These are the 8 gua. And we're going to go into a lot of detail about these 8 gua later. So originally, balance method was simply assigning the various organs, their associated meridians, to various levels of the Ba Gua, so that we could do a meridian transformation and create kind of a harmonic balance globally or systemically throughout the body. And that it works great. I use it all the time, every single day. So, but there's more that we can do. And I'm trying to remember the first time Dr. Tan taught the pulse class. And he only taught it maybe 2 or 3 times as far as I can remember. He never took it any farther than showing us how to find the gua in each of the positions, Sun Guanshe. And after that seminar, which I took, it was apparent to me that there could be more that could be determined just simply by looking at a lot of other elements of each of the gua, which we'll go into in this seminar. Important thing to remember is that none of us get out of this life alive. So we're all in some sort of state of disharmony. So there is no normal pulse image, in spite of what we learned in school. All pulses represent some sort of disharmony in the body, okay? So just remember that. This is a linear depiction of the Ba Gua, originally in its circular form that it's depicted. You'll see that heaven balances with earth, and each level of the trigrams, or the gua, is it starts with the first level, which is at the bottom. So when we read each of the gua, we start with the bottom bar, and we move up to the second bar, up to the top bar. So this is Yao 1, Yao 2, Yao 3. So in the heaven gua, we have Yao 1, Yao 2, Yao 3, or both, or all 3 of them are yang bars. So it's a solid bar. When we find a broken bar, that's considered a yin bar or a yin yao. So like we have yang yang yin, so yang yao, yin yao, and so on and so forth, all the way down to earth. Earth has 3 yin bars, so it's balances with heaven. And if you look at lake, we have yang yang yin, and mountain is yin yin yang, so they balance together, right? And then fire is yang yin yang. Water is yin, yang, yin. Thunder, yang, yin, yin. Wind is yin, yang, yang. Dr. Tan realized that each of the gua has an element that is associated with the gua. We won't go into great detail because he does that really well, and so does Eileen Han, when she talks about the development of the gua and the elements. The heaven and the lake both belong to the metal element. And as we know, the pathogenic factor of metal is dry. Mountain and earth correspond to the earth element, and correspondingly, the earth element pathology is dampness. Fire is hot, water is cold, thunder and wind belong to the wood element, and the pathogenic factor is wind. What's really interesting about this arrangement is that the wind is kind of the central aspect of this linear arrangement and is kind of the carrier for the other pathogenic factors. And we find this to be true when we're dealing with our patients. When we look at the elements, the gua and the organs and their associated meridians, there's an assignment. Obviously, heaven represents the ultimate yang gua, and earth represents the ultimate yin gua. The ultimate yang meridian is du, and then the ultimate yin meridian is the ren meridian. Fire is the fire element. And so the organs that belong to the fire element are small intestine and heart. The water element corresponds to the kidney and the urinary bladder system. And then we have thunder and wind, or thunder and wind gua, and then the mountain and lake gua. If you'll notice, at the center line of our chart here, to the left, these are upper body meridians, and to the right is lower body meridians. So the lower body meridians that are left for us to assign would be spleen and stomach, and so we will assign those to the mountain gua. The lake, on the other hand, is an upper body meridian, so this would be where we would assign lung and large intestine. Again, this is a very quick overview. Dr. Tan and Eileen talk about this in much greater detail in their classes, okay? Just an explanation. So here's another view showing the 5 elements along with the names of each gua. And this is another view. What we're trying to do is build a system so that we can begin to use it clinically. I started doing this in the early 2000s after that seminar I took with Dr. Tan in Boston. It was like the middle of November. It was so cold. I'm a Texan. I don't deal with cold weather very well, and it was really cold and snowy up there. Another view. Now, one thing that we need to do is be able to assign a polarity to each of the gua. So the way Dr. Tan did it, because du represents the heaven gua, and we know that it's the most ultimate of all of the heaven, or the yang gua, it has 3 bars, yang, yang, yang. And if we look over here to the right, the earth gua has 6 bars. There's 3 broken bars. So it has 6. So when we classify the gua, any gua that has an even number of bars, like the earth gua, we're going to consider it a yin gua. In the case where there's an odd number of bars, such as heaven, then we know it's a yang gua. So when we look at lake, there's 4, so that's considered yin. Fire has 4 also, so that's a yin gua. Thunder has 5, so it's considered a yang gua. Wind has 4 bars, so it's considered yin. Water 5, it's yang. Mountain has 5, and it is yang. Now, if you look, heaven balances with earth, we know that. And yang balances with yin. Du balances with ren. We look at the lake gua, it's yin. It balances with mountain, which is yang. And actually look at the image of the lake versus mountain. The first 2 yao in lake are yang bars. The first 2 yao in the mountain gua are yin. And the last yao, the 3rd yao, is yin in lake and yang in the mountain. So we have balance. Let's look at fire and water. They're completely opposite as well, as far as the image of the gua. And then finally, thunder and wind. So we know we have balance. Again, notice also that these to the left, these from the wood element over to the left, these are the upper meridians, upper body meridians, and then the lower body meridians are to the right. The first meridian, or the first balance system, is the same Chinese name. So for instance, when we go back here and we look at a balance meridian for any particular meridian on our body, we need to consider the Chinese meridian name, okay? So in the case of a Tai-Yang meridian, which is your bladder and your small intestine, this is consistent with a channel 1 or channel name congruency. System 2 is where you have the opposite name. So for instance, if you have your lung as a sick meridian, the opposite to lung would be Tai-Yang, because lung is Tai-Yin. So again, this is just strictly a review of the balance system, system 1 and system 2. We're not so concerned right now about opposite limb or same side or opposite side at this point. We're mainly just thinking in terms of the meridians and the possibilities of the balance that could be made through the different systems. In developing system 3, Dr. Kan overlaid a human body onto the bagua. So the arms basically depict upper body organs, and the legs depicted lower body organs, not necessarily meridians, but organs. That's an important concept. Now remember, from the balance method seminars, the ultimate yang meridians that go all the way up to the head or our bladder and gallbladder, they balance with kidney and liver. So when we overlay this onto our chart, we can already see that the assignment now for the heaven meridian would be bladder and gallbladder. The assignment of the earth qua would be kidney and liver. Now remember, this is just another system. Going back, we have the original layout. Okay, this is the original layout. And now we're going to add these meridians to our chart. Okay. Heart and PC belong to the lake. Lung belongs to the wind. Spleen belongs to the fire element. Stomach to the water. Small intestine and Sanjiao belong to the mountain. And then thunder belongs to large intestine. It's important to remember to read in this depiction of the bagua from the bottom yao up. So for instance, if we look at large intestine here, this is read yang, yin, yin. That's the thunder gua. It is not the same as the mountain gua, which is your small intestine sanjiao, which is yin, yin, yang. Okay, it's easy to get confused. So just remember, when we read the gua, we read from the bottom yao to the third yao. And again, there's the Tai Chi symbol. This is the way Dr. Tan likes it. So now we're going to add system 3 to our original chart. So now we have more organs, more meridians that we can see are associated with each of the 8 gua. Okay. System 4. System 4 is based on the Chinese clock. And it's basically the opposite on the Chinese clock. So when we look at the lung, for instance, opposite on the Chinese clock is 180 degrees out of phase. So the bladder meridian balances with lung. And so we see this all the way around. Large intestine with kidney, stomach, pericardium, spleen with sanjiao, heart with gallbladder, so on and so forth. And this is the layout. These are great systems to use for treating pain. System 5. The neighbor on the Chinese clock with the same polarity. So in the case of lung, for instance, person has lung imbalance. The same polarity is not the large intestine, but the liver, because they're both yin meridians. The large intestine is paired with the stomach because they're both yang meridians. in this system, system 5. Spleen and heart, they're both yin. Small intestine and bladder, they're both yang. Kidney and pericardium, they're both yin. And finally, sanjiao and gallbladder are both yang meridians. And here we go. There they are. So these are the 5 systems we just talked about. The 6th system is the same channel, but it's a distal point. So if you're treating pain, for instance, you don't typically treat the local area, according to Dr. Tan. We can use a distal point on that channel. System 7, again, I'm surprised how many people have not learned this. I don't know why, but I use it all the time. So you pick the 6th channel, define its element and polarity and limb, and then find the opposite to all of these. So for instance, if we look at the lung meridian, it's the metal element, its polarity is yin, and it's on the arm. The opposite element is earth. The opposite polarity would be yang, and the limb would be foot. Here we go. This is that chart. So again, let's look at the pericardium channel. Pericardium is a wood element. It's a yin polarity. The opposite of wood is wood. Remember, metal is dry, earth is damp. So those are polar opposites. So one balances the other. Fire and water are polar opposites. One's hot, the other one's cold. Well, what does wind balance with? It balances it with itself. So this is why we have these 4 meridians assigned to the wood element. This is very different than what we learned in school, right? This is a layout of the Chinese clock with the overlay of the elements. This is something you haven't learned too in school. By definition, we cannot separate an element on the Chinese clock. So the metal element is from what, 3 to 7 in the morning? 7 to 11 is earth, 11 to 3 is fire, 3 to 7 is water, and then we have wood. I find this a really interesting chart too, because for people that have insomnia, the wood element is typically one of the reasons that a lot of people are not sleeping. When you think about wood, it's wind. In Ayurvedic medicine, which is what my wife is involved with, they call this vata. And the wind is what keeps things moving. It can be a mental thing, it can be a physical thing, it can be an emotional thing. So one of the things that we have to do as practitioners is to calm the wind so that people can sleep. This is another aspect about this chart is really interesting. I used to work in corporate America. I was an engineer for almost 20 years. And I did like most people. I got up in the morning and went to work. And then when I got off in the afternoon, I went to the gym. But if you look here, the Chinese clock depicts the Tai Chi symbol, which is important for us to recognize because this white portion here represents the yang time of the day. The dark portion represents the yin time of the day. So this yang time of the day is the more active time of the day. The dark section is the more inactive time of the day. This is why people hit the wall at work around 1 to 3 in the afternoon. They have to go to the vending machine and get a Coke, candy bar, whatever, to kind of make them get themselves through the rest of the day. It's because the polarity of the day is actually shifting, okay? I leave my office around 7 o'clock in the evenings, and I go by several parks on the way home. And so I see the kids out there playing sports, and practicing and, doing all the things that kids do. And then there's the organized adult leagues. And when you think about that, so if a kid gets off of school or you get off work and then you start to go to the park to play sports, you're into this time of the day, 6, 7, maybe even 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. So you're introducing a lot of activity in the time of the day when our body naturally wants to calm down. One of the things that also can do this, and not just sports, but maybe watching too much TV at night, or going to the movies at night, or for instance, I got a couple of patients, they are really big into going to music festivals. So a lot of these are at night. And have you ever been in a car at a stoplight and a car pulls up next to you and you can just hear the reverberations from the stereo in their car? That's wind. That's what that is. The ancient Chinese knew this. How come we don't know this, right? So anything that disturbs our shin like that, this is called wind. So we need to be more conscious about that, especially for our patients that are not sleeping very well. But think about this time of the day. Think about quieting down. So one of the things that we do at home is try to turn the TV off, try to turn our iPads, our phones, our computers off at night so that our bodies can actually begin to calm down. A lot of people will leave their TVs on at night so that they can get to sleep. That's pathological, right? Pathological. So think about that. The next thing we want to do is assign the Chinese meridian name to the gua. We start with the element. So the metal element has two factions, yang and yin. The yang aspect of the metal element is large intestine. So now we can actually add the large intestine to this setup here for the heaven gua. So originally we had du. Now we had urinary and gallbladder, that was system 3. And now with this new idea, we can now add large intestine to the assignment for the heaven. With lake, we know that it's the yin aspect of the metal element. So we know that that is lung. The fire gua has just this yin aspect. So we know that heart is there. That's just a duplicate of what we've already seen. The wood element has two gua associated with it. One is yang, one is yin. The yang gua, in this case, is sanjiao. Why? Because this was originally an upper body meridian. The yin aspect of the wen gua, which was a lower body meridian, is liver. The water gua, obviously, is the water element. It's a yang gua, so the bladder is what we end up assigning to the water element. The earth has two gua, yang and yin, mountain and earth. The yang aspect of the earth element is stomach, yang yin. The earth yin aspect of the earth element is the tai yin spleen. So here we are. So now we have just another way of classifying all of the different gua and organs that can be assigned to them. Okay, so this is where people are going to get confused. So I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to get my iPad and we're going to do a little exercise. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So each of the gua has 3 yaos, yao 1, yao 2, and yao 3. The first yao, we're going to assign a number to it. And because Chinese medicine is a binary system, yin and yang, we're going to assign a binary number to each of the yao. The bottom yao, we're going to assign 2 to the 0, which is the value of 1. The second yao, which is in the middle, we're going to assign 2 to the 1, which is the value of 2. And then the top yao will be assigned 2 squared. So we have 2 to the 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2 squared. And their associated values. Now, when we're assigning these numbers to the gua, we can only count that yao if it is a yang bar. So let's look at the heaven. So if we put heaven here, is this coming across, Sam?
Yep, I see you drawing.
Okay. So we have 3 yang bars, yang, 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 from the bottom up. So because these are all yang bars, we can count them. So we're going to write 4 over here, 2 here, 1 here, and add them up. This is 7. We know by definition that the heaven gua is the most ultimate of all the yang guas. Its value is 7. Now, if I look at the earth gua, let's look at the earth gua now. We have 3 yin bars. By definition, we can't count any of these because none of these are yang bars. So this would be 0, this is 0, and this is 0. Their sum is 0. So we know that heaven is 7 and earth is 0. So we do this little exercise for each of the gua. And the reason we're doing this is so that we can energetically classify them so that we can see which ones are more excessive and which ones are more deficient. Okay? So there's an example of the heaven and the water gua. And then here we go. So heaven is 7, wind is 6, 5 is 4, so on, all the way down to earth is 0. Now, let's arrange our chart so that we can have these in order from the largest to the smallest, okay? And this is what we have. So what we have here is on the left side of our chart, we have the gua that would depict more of a yang problem, more of an excessive problem, typically more a warm or hot type condition. And the gua on the right, they're more yin in nature, more deficient, cooler, colder, stagnant. The left side is more active, okay? I hope I haven't lost you guys. It's very quiet. Now let's look at the pulse. We have 3 levels of the pulse: superficial, middle, and deep. And their corresponding energetics. The top superficial level represents the yang and the qi. The deep level, close to the bone, represents the yin or the blood. And everything in the middle represents the fluids and the foods. And I like to think of this level as turbid fluids. So in essence, we have the 3 treasures here, right? Qi, blood, and body fluids. So when we are checking, yes.
Are you drawing on that iPad?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me
There's
stop
something
sharing.
they say not coming out.
Yeah. I apologize. There we go. We're on this chart here. Can you see that, Sam?
Not yet, not coming up.
Okay, 1 second. Okay,
Okay,
there we
now
go.
it's up.
Did you get it?
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So we have the three positions, Sun, Guan, Shi, and then there are organs or meridians that are associated to each of the positions. There's three levels: the yang qi, the turbid fluids, the yin, and the blood. So when we're checking the pulse, and by the way, I check the pulse in the same positions that Dr. Jimmy Chang uses, okay? If you have taken any of his classes, you know that it's very similar to what we've learned, but maybe slightly different from what you've learned. The Sun position is just in front of the styloid process. The Guan position just barely behind the styloid process, and then the Chi position right next to it. So all the fingers are basically touching together. So our challenge when we're checking the pulse is actually constructing a gua in each of the three positions. So this example on this chart represent, we were unable to really see any activity or very little activity in the superficial position in or superficial level in each of the three positions. As we go farther deeper through the pulse in that Sun position, we're able to find more activity, and it stays there as we get deep closer to the bone. In that middle position, we weren't able really to feel any activity in the pulse in the first two levels, the superficial or middle level. But as we got closer to the bone, we were able to feel the pulse there. In that rear position, in the Chi position, there wasn't any activity. And if you do enough pulse diagnosis, you know that this is pretty common pulse image. A lot of people have very little chi going on in the superficial level. And typically that first position has a lot more energy than the other two. Not always, but the earth here in this third position is a fairly common, especially in our society, just a lot of weakness and stagnation here. But that's the goal, is we want to be able to construct a gua in each of the positions on both sides. And then we just map it out, okay? Another depiction. This is wind, water, thunder. So in that first position, we were able to feel it pretty well in that superficial and middle. But as we pressed farther down in that position, the pulse went away. You'll see this. You'll see this clinically. Or you'll feel this kind of pulse, the water gua, where you're not able to feel it in that superficial position. As you press farther down, you feel it, and then it goes away again, okay? So that's the water gua. And then the thunder gua, again, this is a very common gua that shows up in the Chi position, where it's really unavailable in the first two levels, but as you get down deeper, you're able to feel it. One of the things that Dr. Tan did was he imaged each of the positions to the regions. So the Sun position obviously is our upper jiao organs. The Guan position is the middle jiao. And then the Chi position represents the lower jiao organs. Once we've constructed the trigram or gua in each of these positions, it will give us an image of either strength or weakness in that particular position. And what we want to be able to do from that is define what is the element and the polarity that is the influence in that position. And we do this for both sides, both the left and the right side, because most of the time, the pulse image is going to be different from the left side to the right side. This right here is from Dr. Tan. So, you know, in our Western culture, the more prominent position is the north. And when you look at a compass, that's what they do. They point north. In China in ancient times, the south was the main direction. So if we're facing south, and as the sun comes up, it's coming up on our left side, which is the east. So this is defined as the yang side of the body. The setting sun on our right defines the yin side of the body. The nervous system in general is yang in nature and is actually a combination of the bladder and the small intestine channels. This is the Tai Yang, the great big Tai Yang aspect of the body, represents our nervous system. And so that's what's assigned to the left Chi position. The kidney controls the lower orifices. We learn that in school. Elimination involves removing the turbid fluids from the body and actually requires both the kidney and the large intestine channels to do that. So we group them together on the right side. Again, I was mentioning how Vata is an aspect of wind in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. And in Ayurvedic medicine, the lower body is the home of Vata. Wind is the wood element phenomena. This is why gas is considered to be a Vata imbalance or a wood imbalance in our Chinese medicine. Sanjiao is a wood element meridian. And even though it's not an organ per se, it belongs to the wood element. And because of its nature, we're going to assign it to the lower jiao. And we're going to group it on the right side. And actually, that's consistent with some of the ancient texts on pulse. We're now going to assign point groups to each of our gua. Heaven being the most energetic requires a strong energetic point. So we use the Jingwell points. And we do this all the way down through the transport points, and then we're going to add in the Lu point and the Shi clef point to the gua so that we can get our 8-point groups. So this is our depiction of each of the gua, and they are in the order that we assigned according to the number, all the way from 7 down to 0, recall, and each of the point groups: Jingwell, the stream points, the one source points: river, Lu, Shi cleft, and Hussy. And these are just the point groups. You're already familiar with this. I just put them here for your benefit. So let's look at a case. Maybe we should take some questions real quick. Donna? Let's see here. Okay, so why is PC and Sanjiao wood element instead of fire, as I normally think? That's a good question. It goes back to the fact that Dr. Tan used to say that we can't separate the elements on the Chinese clock. I know that's hard for us all to stomach, but that's what it is. It actually fits really better when we think about the wood element comprising these 4 meridians. Lake belongs to the metal. That is the definition of lake according to Dr. Tan's original system 1. Again, Dr. Tan in his seminars goes into that in much greater detail, and even Eileen Han over at the Academy of Acupuncture, she can also talk to you about that. Okay. All right. So the question here is, with the pulse sensation, are you looking for empty or full pulses, or just a sensation at each level? That's a good question. What I'm feeling for is, can I feel the pulse thump on my fingertips in each of the 3 levels of the pulse? The other things that I consider when I'm checking the pulse, obviously, is it hard or soft? Is it thick or thin? Because this helps to funnel down into our diagnosis, right? Okay. Which slide do you need? So the question is, at some point, would I share the explanation to patients about how acupuncture works? Obviously, patients are very, they're very interested in acupuncture. They always wonder how it works. One of the things I always tell them, especially if I'm treating pain, is I compare the acupuncture pathway, the meridian itself, as a garden hose. And when it gets kinked up, it causes pain in that particular area. So the acupuncture points themselves are places where we can adjust the flow of the meridian and unblock the stagnation. Most of the time, that's a simple enough explanation for patients. I don't have to go into greater detail most of the time. But inside the body, if we're talking about internal medical conditions, it can get really quite complicated, because internally there is a network of meridians that follows these 7 systems, allowing the organs themselves to communicate with each other. In essence, this is the TCM version of the Western nervous system. Okay, the question here is, how do you decide when to use balance method versus other methods of systems of diagnosis and treatment? Okay. Well, balance method itself, there's so many. I use some now that Dr. Tan I don't think, ever got a chance to teach. But I've been using balance method, since early 2000s. And in the way that I do now, I just kind of go with it, because I have so many tools now available to me that I will just decide at the spur of the moment which one to use. And if it's not working, then we just change our strategy whenever we need to. And I never use the same points from treatment to treatment, hardly ever. I will always change. One thing that Dr. Ken used to teach was seasonal balance. And even seasonal balance can become even more tailored. He taught it in a way for the 4 to 5 seasons that we typically have in Chinese medicine. But in essence, according to the Bazi, there are actually a season for each Chinese month. So you have 12 seasons during the year. So you could adjust your seasonal balance each month as the Chinese month changes. That's a whole nother seminar, I think. I hope I answered all the questions. Can you put up the last slide? I'm not sure which slide you were looking for. Which slide do you guys need? Do you need this one? This one? You got these, right? You got this PDF? Seasonal balance webinar someday. Yeah. Yeah, that might be a longer class. So one of the things that I do, I calculate the baza, which is the heavenly stems, earthly branches. I actually do it for each day I'm in the clinic. And there's a website that you can get all the information from and get all that set up. I also do this for my patients. So when they first come in, I'll already know what their birth date is, so I can actually calculate from that a generalized constitution that allows me to have a little bit more information than what sometimes they will give me orally, right? Let me see if I can find the website for the baza calculation. It's Jimmy Yap's website, so you can just Google that, and he has all that on his website for doing the baza calculation. It's pretty quick, gives you a nice chart. I actually create a PDF of that chart for my patients and stick it in their file. I'm not selling the original book that I wrote anymore because there's so much more information that I've got to add to the book. So as soon as I find time to update the book, I'll make it available. But right now, the original book isn't in print anymore. All right. Oh, the website is Jimmy Yap. YAP. I think it's Jimmy. Yeah. Okay. Let's move along. And we got about another 50 minutes before we need to take a break, okay? Stems and branches are available on the baza calculating website from Jimmy Yap. Okay. Let me see if I can find that for you. Oh, not Jimmy Yap, it's Joey Yap. Joeyyyap, Joey Yap. Just put his name in and type in baza, B-A-Z-I, and it should take you to that website that has the calculator on it. It's pretty handy. Okay. There's lots of websites for doing baza calculations. I like Joey Yap's website, but you can get an hour-by-hour depiction from that if you know how to calculate it for each hour. And there's a sequence, and maybe at some point we need to do a class on that. It's rather involved, but it's actually really helpful too. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to the case study. This lady brought her son in, 7 years old, really irritable and explosive anger with his two brothers after taking over-the-counter allergy medicine. I don't recall which one it was, maybe Benadryl or Zyrtec or something, I don't know. So I took his pulse, obviously, on both sides, and this is what I got. Sun Guancha, heaven in both the Sun in one position, and then earth and thunder, left, right side. So what does this tell you from our charts that we've just constructed about this child? The heaven gua represents an excess yang, hot condition. Its nature is dry. And so if we decide that we're going to use acupuncture for him, which I didn't, by the way, but we could, we would have used the Jingwell points, right? For the upper and middle jowl. The lower jowl, earth gua, is considered a deficient. It's interesting, right? Where we have the heaven and heaven, a very excessive gua, the most excessive of the gua. And then in the Chua position, we have earth. It suddenly just goes away. You have patients already like this. They have a combination of excess and deficiency. We've even learned that in school, right? Same with the thunder gua, excess and deficiency. But what are we taught to do? We're always taught to treat the excess condition first, right?
How, Mark?
So the points, if we decide to use them, are already defined for us: Jingwell, Hussey, and Shi clef points.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
Are you able to share the PowerPoint again?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So this is the case studies, our 7-year-old kid. This is his pulse image on both sides. It's the heaven in both the Sun and Guan position, both sides. We know from our chart that we've constructed so far that the heaven represents a yang metal influence. It's a yang ming influence. The heaven gua represents the yang metal influence, which is what? Large intestine. That influence is in both positions, both organ matches on both sides in the Sun and Guan position. In the earth, or I'm sorry, in the Chua position on the left side, we have earth. That's a very weak, stagnant gua. And thunder on the right side, also kind of a weak, stagnant gua. One represents the Tai Yin channel, and in the earth gua, this Tai Yin is the foot Tai Yin. On the thunder gua, we have the Xiao Yang, which is San Jiao. And this is from the chart that we've constructed so far during class. I did not do acupuncture on this child. I knew up front that all I needed to do was herbs, but I'm just going through this as an exercise, okay? And quite honestly, I'm not going to do Jingwell points for a 7-year-old. I would never see them again, right? So when you think about this child and the chief complaint, it's not that we're trying to treat pain. We're trying to do a global balance, a systemic balance. So we have lots of tools. If you wanted to use a balance system, a global balance system, you could do that using one of Dr. Tan's systems, like the Jue Yin Xiaoyang is another good way of treating this child. But we're just going to use this technique just to show the way that I would approach it if I were going to just use this particular strategy. So when I'm doing global balance, whenever you do global balance, no matter what kind of patient you have, when you're doing the upper body meridians, one of the things you want to do is make sure that you get balance from left to right and right to left. So you're balancing the upper body meridians. The same goes for the lower body meridians. So if you choose a lower body meridian on one side, you want to choose one that balances with it using one of the 7 systems, right? The other thing that you want to do to globally balance your patient for internal medical problems, which this qualifies, is to balance diagonally from upper to lower and across the body. So if you have a meridian on the right arm, you want to balance it with something on the left foot or left leg and vice versa. So you're balancing diagonally from one limb to the other limb on the other side. So upper to lower or lower to upper. That way you get a balance in the four directions, horizontally and vertically, and then the 2 diagonal directions. This is called the 6-direction balance. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit. So the heaven gua shows up in the left sun, the right sun, left guan, the right guan. Now the yang mean influence. There is no balance meridian that you can choose with large intestine. Yang mean, in this case, is the large intestine. Large intestine doesn't balance with heart. However, the heaven implies that there is some sort of excess condition affecting the heart and the pericardium. So there's 2 different things that can occur. You can have the direct influence of a balanced meridian to another meridian, or you can have the image of that meridian, the image of that gua affecting the meridians in that position. Let's look at the right sun. The right sun is the lung position. We know that large intestine, yang mean, influences the lung because that's a system 3 balance. System 3 is the internal-external relationship with the paired meridian of the channel. So the right sun position represents the lung 11, in this case, the Jingwell point. Let's look at the left guan position. Again, we have this large intestine influence affecting the left guan. Left guan is liver. So large intestine does balance with liver in system 2. This is yang ming to jue yin. This is system 2. The point is liver 1, Jingwell. Remember, these first 4 are heaven gua. This is what we found in the pulse. So we know right away if we're going to use these points, they're going to be Jingwell points. And then on the right side in the guan position, we know that large intestine and stomach balance in system 1. This is the same Chinese name, yang ming, yang ming. Large intestine also balances with spleen. This is system 7. Why? Large intestine is the metal element. It's the yang aspect of the metal element. Spleen is a yin meridian, and it's the earth element. So we know right away, and this is upper body, large intestine is upper body, spleen is lower body. This is system 7. These are the points, stomach 45 and spleen 1. The left chu position. We have the earth gua represents the tai yin influence. In this case, it's the foot tai yin, which is spleen. In that position, we have 2 organs, small intestine and bladder. Spleen balances with small intestine in system 2. Spleen is tai yin, small intestine tai yang. This is foot, this is hand. Small intestine 8 is the point. That's the hussy point. Oops. Sorry. The right chu position represents the thunder gua. The thunder gua is the Xiaoyang influence. In this case, it's the Han Xiaoyang, Sen Jiao. Sen Jiao is in this position on the right as far as the pulse is concerned. And so Sen Jiao balances obviously with Sen Jiao. That's system 6. Also, San Jiao balances with kidney. Why? That's system 2. Xiaoyang balances with Xiaoyin. So our point selections here, this is the Shi cleft points. San Jiao 7 and kidney 5. So these are the points if we choose to select them. Again, in this particular balance system, we're matching the gua to certain points. There's lots of balance methods. This is just one of them. And quite honestly, sometimes I combine balance strategies in treatments. once you start getting familiar with the different balance strategies, you'll notice that sometimes you can overlay certain systems with each other. So these are the points. We'll just put them up here, and then we can modify as we need to. So let's look at the left side over here, the left, or just the right side of your screen. Lung 11 and stomach 45 are on that side. So when you look at lung and stomach, they actually balance each other. Why? That's system 7, okay? Let's look at the other side. Small intestine balances with liver. That's system 4. Small intestine balances with spleen. That's system 2. Small intestine balances with kidney. That's system 3. So if we were to use small intestine in those 3 points in the lower body, we have lots of balance there. Sanjiao balances with liver. Why? That's a system 7 balance. Sanjiao balances with spleen. That's system 4. So again, we have balance there. Now let's look diagonally. Lung balances with liver. That's system 4. Lung balances with spleen. That's system 2. So we have balance diagonally in that system. But look on stomach 45. It doesn't balance with small intestine or Sanjiao. So we would need to do something different here in order to get a balance in all 6 directions, which is always my goal. Now, it may not be yours, but I like to, when I'm doing acupuncture, I like to make it balanced all directions. What could we do? The only thing you could do on the right side where Sanjiao and small intestine are is to remove those points and add a point. So let's remove those 2 points. We'll take the kidney point out and we'll add a large intestine point here. Why? Large intestine balances with stomach. That's system 1, yang ming to yang ming. Large intestine balances with lung because it's the paired meridian. That's system 3. Large intestine balances with liver. It's system 2. Large intestine balances with spleen. This is system 7. Now, which point are we going to use? Which point? Which point do you like? I like to, when I'm trying to do this balance and I don't have a clear idea, I always like to use the Lu point. The Lu point is the connecting point between large intestine and lung. You can use whatever you want. If you want to use a Jingwo point, that's fine. But I'd like for this child, if I'm going to do acupuncture on him, to come back. I don't think he's going to tolerate any of these points very well. So, oh, this is the other point that I like, is Dr. Tan's T point. It's similar to the Shinmen point in the ear, but actually stronger. And then the Yin Tong point on the head. But if you look at the triangular fossa, the lower border here is a piece of cartilage. Along this area is where Dr. Tan calls his T point. This point is very strong for calming the shin and calming the wind. I always look for a place where there's a little discoloration, or maybe a little red mark, or maybe there's a little vein in there. But quite honestly, if there's not, you can just needle this, okay? Just needle that area. The next thing we want to do is what's called the 6-level construction. The 6 levels is basically we're going to take the left side, put it in a row on top, and put the right side pulse image on the bottom. So what we've done now, we have the upper jowl, middle jowl, lower jowl, gua, one on top of the other. Okay? this actually creates, instead of a trigram, you're creating a hexagram. This is what the I Ching is made of, is the 64 hexagrams. So when we look at the upper jiao, middle jiao, and lower jiao, we have what's called 6 levels. The first level is this bottom row of yao from the right pulse. The second row involves the middle yao on the right side, and then the third yao the third level represents the third yao on the right side. The fourth level is the bottom row of the yao in the left pulse. The middle yao on the left side represents the 5th level. And then the top yao on the left represents the 6th level. So from the bottom, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th levels. Now, up to now, we've been constructing gua vertically in each position. Now we're looking at the gua horizontally in each of the levels. This is important because it gives us an energetic nature in each of these 6 levels. So this is from the bottom up. Remember, the first yao is from the bottom. Now, on our pulse, when we're doing anatomy in Chinese medicine, the arms are upwards. So when we have our arm upward, the bottom yao is the sun or the cho position. The middle is our guan position, and then at the very top would be the sun position. So in this chart, the bottom yao is the cho position. The top would be the sun position. So the gua in levels 2 through 6 is the wind gua, not the lake. It's not the lake gua, it's the wind gua. What do we know about wind? It's a warm, energetic gua. It's very active. Why? Because it belongs to the wood element. The wood element is a very active, erratic, hot, can be an inflammatory type of nature. The levels are represented here. Yang and qi, yin and blood. And then in the middle, we have turbid fluids, and then the lymph. When you look at the level 4 and 2 and 3, you can get a sense of what's happening internally because it looks at the blood level, but in this third position, you can almost kind of detect what is going on in the GI tract. Because why? This is the tract of elimination for the body. So right away, we have a lot of inflammation, some heat, some erratic movement. No wonder this poor kid is explosive with his brothers, right? So just remember, in addition to the 3 positions on both wrists, we also have 6 levels that need to be considered wherever we're doing herbs. One of the things that you'll notice with people that have the heaven gua in both sun positions, they tend to be very hyperactive. Why? Because that heaven energy is affecting the upper jiao. What is in the upper jiao? Our head is in the upper jiao. Our nervous system is in the upper jiao. Pituitary, headaches, sleep problems, blood pressure, nervousness, chronic fatigue. This is all due to excessive energy in the upper jiao. The upper jiao, or I'm sorry, the middle jiao, if you have heaven in both, it can create hyperactive energy in the heart and pericardium. Why? Because a lot of times when you have hyperactivity in the middle jiao, we're also talking about liver yang, we're talking about stomach heat, and that heat rises and agitates the heart and pericardium. So, when in our classes in school, we learn 29 or so pulses. This is really how many pulse patterns there are, over 262,000. Because we have 8 gua and we have 6 positions. So 8 to the 6th is 262,000 pulses. So there'll be a test at the end, so you'll need to know all 262,000. Okay, let's move on. So let's look at some herbs. So the Han-Yang mean influence in both Sun positions. So we know that the Han-Yang mean influence is the large intestine. Large intestine balances with stomach, it's system 1. Large intestine balances with liver, system 2. The Yang mean excess represents heat and yin deficiency affecting the liver and the pericardium, which is emotions. Normally when I see this, I kind of think about it, too much sugar in the diet. We need to calm this down, right? The foot tai yin influence in the left cha, this is the result of the earth gua in that position. Spleen balances with small intestine from system 2. Whenever you have earth affecting small intestine, think about some sort of a toxicity buildup and food stagnation in the lower jiao. Not uncommon, really, for kids, really anybody. When you see earth and thunder and water, gua, in that cha position, think just some sort of really toxic, turbid mess in the lower jiao. Han Xiao Yang influence in the right cha position. San Jiao balances San Jiao. That's system 6. San Jiao balances kidney. That's system 2. Again, this is kind of a toxicity, stagnant buildup in the lymph in the kidneys. Again, 2nd and 3rd and 4th levels are influenced by the Wen Gua. This corresponds to the blood, the turbid fluids, and the lymph. The Wen Gua represents heat, inflammation, and erratic or disharmonious movement. Why? Because that's what wind does. It moves things, and it can be very disruptive. You got to remember that Dr. Tian was all about images. Everything in his systems was all about images. So we're just translating that image into another way of looking at the pulse. So here's some recommendations. And by the way, the acronyms that I've used here, I have a slide that goes into the actual full name of these herbals. Chai Hu Jia Longu Mu Li San clears all 3 yang stages and sedates and calms the spirit. You could also use Evergreen's Calm ES. I reformulated Dao Chi San. Dao Chi San originally has 4 herbs in it. I added a couple more, and I'll go through that later. It clears heat out of the small intestine and heart. Bao Hawan is a food stagnation formula. And then there's an optional formula you could use. Dr. Jimmy Chang has a really nice formula called M3. I think it's also in that page. We'll go over that. And if I don't, be sure to ask me. I created a formula called Liver 1. It really calms down all the liver. It's got Longdan, Sheigan Tang, Goten Sang, Tianman, Goten Yen, Zingan, Shikan Tang. And this is different from Dr. Chang's Liver 1. Another option here would be Evergreen's Gardenia Complex. And then Dr. Tian's formula, I call it Calm ANX. It's got these 3 formulas, Xiao Yao San, Yigan San, and Shugan Wan. so far what you're seeing here, we're seeing a lot of liver heat, liver yin issues, some food stagnation, a lot of heat, right? So we need to calm this down. We need to calm it down. And if you suspect something that might be going on with the lymph system, Evergreen has a nice formula called Resolve AI. And then there's another couple options for the digestive tract. One I already mentioned, the Baohuan or Weijiwan. All really good formulas. So these are all really good. This kid, we did, I have the ability to do both powders and capsules. I made about 100 capsules. It only took, I don't know, maybe half, and he was good. He didn't have any more problems after this. This is the Daoqi Wan, or Daoqi San. I actually use this a lot. People that have heart fire and also small intestine heat. Dosing is important. A lot of times, dosing needs to be corrected in the way we look at, especially American patients. The typical adult dosage for a 150-pound person is about 6 scoops a day. That's around 9 to 10 grams of herbs. But if they're doing capsules, I've got an encapsulator that does 100 capsules, and they're size 0. So they're about 400 milligrams. It's going to take 18 capsules a day, right, to get the same dosage. And I have some large patients, so they need a lot more than that if they're going to do capsules. But for kids, this is a great way to get kids to take herbs because they're not too keen on taking herbs in tea form, most of them. So 7-year-old kids do not eat a very healthy diet. They're going to eat whatever they want to eat. So you have to kind of counsel mom and dad and let them know some things that they can do at home that can help, right? So let's take a quick break and maybe answer some questions. Let me look at the questions. Okay, so how many Jingwell points would I use on an adult? Maybe 2 or 3. Very few people need more than 1 or 2 Jingwell points. So I would not cover a person in Jingwell points. Unless they've been with me a while and they understand my methods, new people aren't going to get Jingwell points from the very get-go. So small intestine balances kidney. Okay, this is a good question. So let's review. Small intestine is the yang fire, right? It belongs to it's the yang element of the fire, yang aspect of the fire element. Kidney is the yin aspect of the water element. So that is consistent with a balance system number 7. Okay. Go back to that slide that shows the balance for each of the meridians according to system 7. I don't know the Chinese character for Yao, but what the Yao means is Yao represents one of the levels of a trigram. So let's look at, let me go back to this slide. So let's look at the left Cha position. The left Cha position has 3 yin bars. They're all considered yin. So each of those bars is considered a yao. So the first yao is yin, second yao is yin, third yao is yin. Compare that to the right Chua position. The first yao is yang.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
Your PowerPoint not sharing again.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's look at this slide. In the right Chua position, the first yao, we have three yao, yao 1, yao 2, yao 3. The first yao is a yang bar. The second, which is in the middle, is a yin bar. And the third, which is at the top, which represents the superficial level of that pulse, is yin. So yang, yin, yin. Compare that to the left side, we have yin, yin, yin. So yao 1, yao 2, yao 3 are all yin. The other positions in this pulse image, in this little boy, were all heaven. So yao 1, yao 2, yao 3 were all yang bars. Okay. I don't know what the Chinese character is for yao. Someone that might know might be able to share that. Let me see if there's any more questions. Let me stop this. So the spoons, when you order herbs from Evergreen, they will ship you a bunch of little spoons. Each spoon is about a gram, maybe a gram and a half of herbs. So 6 spoons a day is about 9 to 10 grams of herbs. It is not a teaspoon. It's not a tablespoon, but it's about a gram. Yeah. How do you choose which side to allocate your points for balance? That's a good question. Just hypothetically, sometimes if there are other conditions going on that maybe require a certain set of points on a particular side, I will choose the yin or yang nature on that side and choose points accordingly. Sometimes that will drive my selection of points, but most of the time it'll be random. And if I need to, I can duplicate that the next time they come in. So the question here is, how do you determine the heaven or earth, etc., in these positions? So when I'm checking pulse, I'll try to get a nature of the pulse. I'll press up and down into position 2 or 3 times just to wake up the body. I'll start at the bone, and I'll feel the pulse to see if there's anything going on there. Then I'll work my way up. Now, at this point, I'm also assessing how thick the pulse is. Is it thick? Is it thin? That diameter of the pulse is actually the driver of how far up you go to the top of that pulse. So if a person has a very wide pulse, the movement of your finger up to the surface is larger than for someone that has a very thin pulse. This is kind of important because when a person has a very thin pulse, the movement of your fingertip up to the surface is much smaller than if a person has a very wide pulse. But to determine whether it's a heaven or earth is easy, because really, if you can feel that pulse on both or on all 3 levels, deep close to the bone, in the middle, and then at the superficial level, you know you have the heaven gua. But if you're unable to feel it at all, and you'll notice that with some people, especially in the Chua position, very weak, very stagnant. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay. I'm going to go back to let's go back to the presentation. I'm just going to introduce this next case, and then we'll take a break, okay? Okay, here's case 2. So this lady was referred to me by, this female patient was referred to me by a doctor who has uterine
to
fibroids.
share PowerPoint again.
Oh, sorry. There?
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So 45-year-old female patient, she was referred by a doctor, uterine fibroids for a long time, low hemoglobin and low iron for the last 4 years. This is her pulse image. It's interesting because it's the same image on both sides. Sun Guansha, Lake Earth. Kind of rare to actually see the same pulse image on both sides. It happens, but I don't see it very often. Maybe your patient population has it more often than not, but in my part of the world, not so much. So the Lake Gua represents the hand Tai-yin influence, which is the lung. Now remember, the Lake Gua tends to be a little bit deficient. It's a yin type of nature. It's more cool, more dry, and corresponds to the river points, okay? The Earth Gua also is a Tai-yin influence, but in this case, it's a spleen. So again, the Earth is the most weak, stagnant of all of our Gua. It's yin, it's cold, it's damp, it's stagnant, and it corresponds to the Hussey points. So if you're going to use this strategy, right away, we're going to be using river and Hussey points. Okay? So this is the pulse image, both sides, same. Lake Earth on the left, Lake Earth on the right. Look at this though, this is really interesting. So the influence across the board is Tai-yin. Tai-yin. What do we know about the spleen in Chinese medicine? It produces the blood, right? So we know that from Chinese medicine. And so we know that this woman has a problem producing blood, and her pulse actually reflects that there is a spleen issue here. Low hemoglobin sometimes can be related to not enough oxygen in the blood, which is related to our lung. So you're going to see things sometimes that a lot of other practitioners, especially Western trained, may not see exactly the same. Because as you know, when you get patients that bring in their labs and other materials from other doctors, and it indicates they don't have any problems going on, and it must all be in their head, that sometimes, you know, Chinese medicine can maybe offer another avenue of information that they didn't have access to before. So let's look at the 6-level construction first. So we put the left side Gua on the top row. The right side we'll put on the bottom row. So in that first position, we have lake over lake, lake over lake in the middle, and then we have earth over earth. So now let's look at the 6 levels. And by the way, I don't have any fancy forms that I use. I use an iPad when I'm doing my intakes in the rooms, and I just draw it out. I just draw these things out. But I already know what's going on when I start to construct this diagram. Because look at the lower jaw. It's all earth. There's all yin. Remember, one of the things that Chinese medicine says is that yang is moving energy and yin is stagnant energy. This is a precept of our medicine. So whenever we have yang energy, we know we have moving energy. And one of the precepts of health in our bodies is more moving energy than stagnant energy. Where is the weakness in this patient? It's in her lower jaw. No wonder she has fibroids, right? No wonder. So everything is kind of damp, stagnant. When you look at the blood level, it seems to be erratic. The lymph is also related to the blood. When you think about the filters in our body, we have three. We have the lymph system, we have our liver, and we have our kidneys. Whenever you have stagnant energy in any of these filters, it causes problems. This is why in our pharmacy, we have so many herbs that treat the blood. And this is why Dr. Jimmy Cheng uses a lot of herbs to treat the blood. Is this right here. We got to look at the blood level. We got to look at this level of the lymph system too. So this wen gua in the blood, in the lymph, represents heat and erratic movement in the blood. We need to have harmonious movement of qi and blood in the body. When things get out of sorts, then things start to go haywire. And this is why she's not responding well to the traditional treatments. So let's look at what we need to do for her. In the, the left and right Sun position, we have the yin metal, tai yin influence. Oops, sorry. Now, yin metal is lake. The lake image represents qi deficiency. Why? Is because we have that yin bar in the third yao. That's in the superficial level. The superficial level of the pulse represents yang and qi. When there's a yin bar there, a yin yao, we know there's weakness. So we know that on that position, the left and the right, actually, we know there's some heart qi deficiency and lung qi deficiency. Now, the yin metal tai yin influence also is affecting the left and the right guan position in the middle jiao. When we have that happening, when we have that yin bar at the top in the superficial position, we know we have liver qi stagnation. This is the classic liver qi stagnation, gua. And on the right, we have spleen and stomach deficiency. Most likely spleen deficiency here. The earth, gua, in the cha positions on both sides represents lower jiao stagnation. Whenever we have earth on both sides, we know that there is most likely not only blood stasis, there's most likely qi stagnation and qi deficiency. Lots of good formulas here. These are all from Evergreen. Menses, Minitrol, Dr. Jimmy Cheng's Circulation Sanjiao, which is also an Evergreen formula. Herbal Bulldozer is Dr. Jimmy Cheng. I'll list the ingredients later. And also Resolve Lower. All of these are big blood movers, and Minitrol and Menses also help to work on the hormones. If you want, you can also add either Xing Mai San or Buffet Tong to help nourish the heart and spleen. I'm sorry, the lung and the heart. So let's look at some points. So remember, in this particular case, the main meridians that showed up were the hand tai yin and the lung tai yin. So let's put together a point prescription that can not only work on these, but also work on the water element, because why? Kidney and urinary bladder is our system that is responsible for the menstrual cycle and our hormones. So that's a Xiaoyin Tai Yang balance. From Dr. Tan, we have several different strategies that balance the Xiaoyin and the Tai Yang. But we also want to try to include a point prescription that can work on the lung and spleen, which is the Tai Yin. So let's look at trying to overlay the Tai Yin with the Xiaoyin, and this is what I came up with. So let's look at the points. Remember, we're working with river points and hussy points, and you recognize all these. So small intestine is a Tai Yang. This is part of the fire element. Oops. There we go. So small intestine and large intestine, one is Tai Yang, one is Yang Ming. When you look at the balance meridians across the upper body, we have lung and heart. The bottom meridians in the lower body, we have spleen and kidney, bladder, and stomach. This is very similar to what's called a Tai Yang, Xiaoyin, and Yang Ming Tai Yin balance in Dr. Tan's system. Those systems are later on in this series of slides, so we can talk about those later. But you can see that these are the similar to the river hussy points. But let's look at the balance. Small intestine balance with spleen. This is system 2, Tai Yang to Tai Yin. Small intestine balances kidney. This is the internal-external relationship. This is the paired meridian. Large intestine balances with spleen. This is system 7. Large intestine balances with kidney in system 4. Over here on the other side, lung balances with urinary bladder. This is system 2 and system 4. Lung balances with stomach, system 7. Heart balances with bladder. This is system 7. Now, diagonally from small intestine to bladder, that balances because why? They have the same Chinese name, Tai Yang. Large intestine balances with stomach. They have the same Chinese name, Yang Ming. Spleen balances with lung. This is Tai Yin. And kidney balances with heart, same Chinese name, Xiaoyin. Yin Tong, Yin Tong is the point on the forehead. And then because of her fibroids, I use the uterus point in the ear. This is just one example. If you want to just use a kidney, heart, kidney type balance method, you could do that. But if you wanted to use this strategy where you're just using points driven by the pulse, this is one way you could do it. One of the things that causes a lot of problems for a lot of people is their diet and the fluids they're drinking. In spite of the heat of the summer, we still at home drink warm water, even with meals. And the reason being is that cold water and cold fluids tends to stagnate the middle jiao. And the last thing you want to do is inhibit the ability of the digestive organs to do their job, to break down and absorb the nutrients from the foods that we're eating. And if you're drinking a lot of cold fluids, that will prevent that from happening. And it also slows down blood flow in the lower jiao. So one of the things that as practitioners, I think we need to do a better job of is counseling people on how to change their lifestyle in the forms of their meals and their fluids that they're consuming. One thing I noticed about this patient, the lake was in both Sun positions. The week before she came in, she had COVID. And so she had a sore throat. She was a little hoarse, laryngitis, some neck gland swelling. All of this was represented by the lake Hua in both positions. The lake in the middle jiao is typically stomach problems. Nervous stomach can cause indigestion, heartburn. Because of the qi stagnation, you'll have, emotional stress. And then the earth Hua, again, in both positions in the Chu position, this represents poor circulation. It can create lower jiao problems, limb swelling, a lot of problems, coldness in different areas. Just a damp, sticky mess in the lower jiao. This is Dr. Tan's balance method for Tai Yin. If you've not taken the balance seminars for global balance or meridian transformation, that's what this is. So the 3-6, 1-4, and 1-4 methods use these points. And if you look in this particular one right here, this first one, Tai Yin Yang Ming, lung balances with large intestine, lung balances with spleen. This is the interior-exterior paired channel balance. Lung balances with spleen because of the same channel name, Tai Yin. Lung balances with stomach, that's system 7 again. Large intestine balances with spleen, also system 7. And then finally, stomach balances with spleen. That's the interior-exterior paired channel relationship. And then, of course, stomach balances with large intestine, same channel name. So right there, this is a global balance strategy for Tai Yin Yang Ming. And it only uses these 8 points. And you get balance in all 6 directions. This is great. I use it a lot for allergies. Okay. Tai Yin and Tai Yang. So these are the points. This is a balance method that does not balance in all 6 directions. I see that primarily what we're working with here is lung and bladder, small intestine and spleen. These balance. This one is system 2, and this one here is system 2 as well. Oops, there we go. Now, of course, lung and small intestine don't balance. Bladder and spleen do not balance. But lung and spleen balance, and small intestine and bladder. So we get balance in 4 directions, but we don't get them in all 6. So if you're going to use this strategy, this Tai Yin, Tai Yang, you would need to add 1 or 2 points in this strategy to get it to balance in all 6 directions. Where I would use this, we're using the Jingwell points, right? So this is a person that's going to need some clearing of some excessive energy. So, think about maybe headaches or neck pain, things like that. Oops, did it again. And then Tai Yin Xiaoyang is also a 1-4 strategy. Again, this is using the Jingwell points and 1 source points, both. The next set is the Xiaoyin balance. Xiaoyin Yang Mean is a 1-4 strategy. Xiaoyin Taiyang is a 3-6. And then Xiaoyin Xiaoyang is a 3-6 strategy. When you're checking pulses and you see a lot of Qua in your pulse image that corresponds to one of the Chinese names, then you can start thinking about using one of these patterns as maybe a base for your treatment. And then finally, the last balance method is the Jue Yin. And so we have Jue Yin Yang Ming, which is a 1-4 strategy. Jue Yin Taiyang and Jue Yin Xiaoyang are both 3-6. This last one, Jue Yin Xiaoyang. Let's look at it. Sanjiao and PC are a paired channel, so they balance. So do liver and gallbladder. They balance. Liver and pericardium balance because why? They have the same Chinese name, Jue Yin. Sanjiao and gallbladder balance each other. Why? Because they have the same name, Xiaoyang. Sanjiao balances with liver, system 7. Pericardium balances with gallbladder, system 7. Dr. Tan uses this for cuckoo-ness, people that are crazy. And actually, anybody that has a lot of stress, anxiety, a lot of just really, a lot of what we see, right? A lot of stress type people, type A type people, you could use this. This is a great one because why? It balances in all 6 directions. I use this one quite a bit. So let's take a break for about maybe 15 minutes and come back and we'll finish up, okay? Marissa, okay, so hot weather. No, room temperature maybe, but never cold water. The cold water is just too stagnating, even during hot weather. I mean, I live in Texas and it was over 100 degrees most of the summer. And room temperature is fine, but quite honestly, it needs to be warmer hot water. Okay, we'll come back in at 20 minutes after the hour, okay?